So let's not waste any time and just say that streaming movies is legal.
FBI, open up!
Okay, so I think those guys have now left my house, but it really is a fair question and it gets asked so many times. Is streaming illegal? Are you allowed to download content? Are you allowed to stream copyrighted content? Does it really matter what country you're in? And finally, probably the most important one, does it make any difference if it's live TV versus movies and TV shows? Well, I thought I'll make this quick video today and answer some of those points, but I will just add a disclaimer that this is not legal advice, and if you're not sure about the laws in your country, then it's definitely worthwhile checking them out and don't rely on some YouTube video. So there was two articles posted both on Torrent Freak, and the first one talks about the streaming websites and the second one talks particularly about IPTV. Now we can see it opens up with that downloading pirated movies and TV shows is against the law in USA. Now the key thing to understand here is that word where it says downloading. Now before really the big rise of streaming services like Netflix and other sites, the most common way of acquiring content online was to use torrents or some form of P2P. Now for the elders in my community, I'm sure you'll remember the likes of eMule and eDonkey and Kazaa and Napster and some of the other P2P programs. Now the thing to understand there is you are specifically downloading content, and if this content is copyright content, then yes, that is against the law in USA because you're actually downloading that copyrighted content. Now, as we can see here, the difference with streaming websites or streaming applications is you're not actually downloading the whole content as such. You are trickling that download, streaming that content. As soon as you finish the movie or TV show, that content does not exist on your device anymore. And that's why it becomes slightly a grey area, because you never downloaded that content completely, you just streamed it onto your device. Does that still fit into the same category as downloading copyright content? It goes on to say that the same is true for people who operate a pirate streaming site. So if you provide access to copyright content, so somebody can go to your site or somebody can use your application and then consume that copyright content, you are again breaking the law because you are providing access to that copyright content. But this is where it gets a bit tricky, because it's saying that the people who actually consume that content may not actually be breaking any law, because all they're doing is just consuming. They are not providing, they are not hosting, they are not selling that content, they're just consuming it, and once they finish consuming it, that content does not exist on their device anymore. And this is what I was talking about. So up till about a decade ago, it was mostly the direct downloads or the torrent sites that were dominating this space. But what's happened now is the shift has now completely moved over to streaming sites. So I can now browse to one of these sites, don't need to download anything, don't need to install anything, and I now can access a complete library of movies and TV shows. Now, I'm sure you guys are familiar with ACE, the Alliance of Creativity and Entertainment. These seem to be the big players who shut down popular streaming applications, popular websites, and they're very, very active at the moment. And we can see here, I don't want to click on this link, but there's hundreds of popular streaming sites which have been shut down by ACE. And the way you know it's ACE, because when you go to the site, you actually see a big banner telling you that this site has now been seized by ACE and they are now stopping anybody accessing the content. And they typically even give you, here are some official streaming services that you should be using instead. And this is one of the things I've discussed on my channel before, that it always seems to be a case of you shut down one website and another three appear, or you shut down one application like FileLink, for example, and we have three new clones or three new versions or alternatives that people can use. Now this is also a new change in these streaming websites, where many of them are now using Cloudflare. Now, if you didn't know, Cloudflare allows you to have regional points of presence for your service or website. So I'm based in the UK. So if I try to access a third-party website that is using Cloudflare, then because of Cloudflare, I would access a local copy or local instance of that website based in the UK. And what that means for me is I'll get better performance, quicker response times, and I can access that service. And in fact, if you use the Tech Doctor UK website, I'm also using Cloudflare. So people based in the EU will access EU copies of that page. Similarly, for people based in the United States, will access a local copy of that. So in summary, it just means everybody gets the best possible performance. So you can imagine if somebody's hosting copyright content or illegal content, so all ACE need to do is just contact Cloudflare and say one of the websites you're hosting or providing access to is actually infringing copyright laws. So you can imagine as soon as Cloudflare get that, they would shut that website down. But you can see here that many of them are actually using fake information to sign up. So even if Cloudflare do shut them down, they don't really have any details to pass back to the authorities who was actually publishing this content. Now this really gets interesting that the people actually consuming the content, so if you are somebody that uses third-party streaming websites or third-party applications, how can ACE go after somebody like you? And the article says that the biggest issue that they have is there's no easy way to find the IP address of the person that's consuming the copyrighted content if they're just accessing this through a browser. And this is one of the main reasons why people do like to use a VPN when accessing streaming websites or streaming applications, because you completely mask your IP address. So even if the website started collecting information about you, they'll never get your true IP address. And it goes on to explain that the site operators, the people or websites hosting the third-party content, they could potentially hand over their data if the site or service was compromised. So even in this scenario, if the site was compromised and they handed over the website data, again, if you were using a VPN, they would never have your true IP address anyway. And this where it gets very interesting, that even if they do get your true IP address, how can they actually prove that you are engaged in copyright infringement? And they use 3 key indicators to work out, are you actually breaking that copyright law? And the 3 indicators are distribution, reproduction, and public performance. Now, distribution basically means I'm making copies or DVDs of copyright movies and I'm selling them somewhere. So I'm now distributing copyright content. So reproduction is you've downloaded a copy of the latest movie, like Spider-Man 10 or something, and you've now got a copy of that on your device. So you've now reproduced copyright content and you're holding that on your device. And the last one is one that's a bit tricky, where public performance of copyrighted content. So you're providing a mechanism, or you're basically showcasing copyright content, maybe on a site or somewhere else, that would also be deemed infringing copyright law. So you can see how things are changing, and they're making it more stricter or more harder, and finding other ways how they can clamp down on third-party streaming websites and also third-party applications. Now, the other article I was going to mention was this one, where we can see this particular IPTV provider was targeted in a multi-million piracy lawsuit. And now this is one of the most recognizable brands in the IPTV arena, and we can see now they're being sued by United States with damages running into tens of millions. And what's interesting in this story is that they actually were extorted by a hacker who claimed to have obtained details of the 121,000 subscribers. So all of their customer data, their information, their customer payment details, all of that was obtained by this hacker. So it does seem like for IPTV content, particularly live sports, if they get taken down, then the damages, the costs, or just the amount that they get sued for always seems to be in the tens of millions of dollars. So I think that really kind of shows you where the priority is when shutting down these services. So that's all for this video, guys. Many thanks for watching. Do you think ACE or these big guns will ever shut down free streaming, or do you think it's here to stay forever? Do leave me a comment below, let me know, and I'll hopefully catch up with you guys real soon. Thanks.